Oh, it's live.
Hey, everybody. Andy Doutrick with Centennial Lending Group, back with my friend Don Moll to spend a little bit more time talking about divorce, our mortgage, and how going through the divorce process, especially when there is secured house debt, can be a little bit challenging, especially if you're not dealing with the right folks. So good to see you again, Don.
Good to see you, Andy. Looking sharp. You know, I'm wearing a golf shirt. You know why? Because I can. I'm in Florida.
Yeah, it was 5 degrees up here this morning when I woke up. So, yeah, it's a little chilly.
Yeah.
A little chilly. So, yeah, thanks for coming. You know, we talked a little bit last month, and we're going to try to do one of these every month just to try to get people pointed in the right direction in terms of communicating with the right people as they're going through the divorce process, as it relates to the mortgage, secured home debt, and also some other assets, just because, you know, you and I have seen that these things are set up so poorly sometimes if the attorneys aren't communicating with us, and where they think they're putting people in a good position, they're actually putting them in a position to fail because what they think is successful doesn't necessarily match up with our definition of underwriting guidelines to get these loans approved.
Yeah, well, I've yet to meet an attorney that actually went to underwriting school. So
it's true.
All fairness to them, you know. So and it's just creating awareness. It's all it is really creating awareness. And I feel so strongly more every day, every single day. I feel more strongly about my mission, and that is to bring information to people that are in a very difficult situation, difficult time in their life, so that they can have the information they need, eliminate the blinders that they're not even aware of, so that they can make the best decision for themselves and their family. So, you know, and as you know, we focus on what we call the enhanced house due diligence. And we have team members. So you and I provide as divorce mortgage specialists, provide the divorce mortgage guidance. We also look at things such as title. We have insurance professionals. We have inspection and condition and valuation. And what became very apparent to me in meeting with some of my attorney clients is that there was another gap. And that was when I asked whoever the divorcing spouse was, hey, there's assets here. Who's your financial advisor? And most times I didn't, I got the answer, well, it's his or hers, or I've met him, might have met a mixer. So I recognize that there's a real need to add another team member. And that's where our guest comes in, Mark Ivezaj. And Mark actually practices, he's in Michigan. And so I'm there as well, being Florida and Michigan. And I came across Mark on the what's called the Certified Divorce Financial Advisor website. Now, you've got to understand, I've been wholesaling financial products to financial advisors since 2000, and across all channels, all products. And I've never heard of the term Certified Financial Advisor until about 2 years ago. So that's when I found Mark on the what's called the CDFA website. Mark is actually a great guy. You know, when we met, I knew right away that it was going to be a good working relationship. Mark, he's got great values, and his mission is very similar. You know, you serve others, you do the right thing, and you will be taken care of. And so Mark went to University of Michigan. He had a very good year this year on the gridiron, and
Alaska.
Yeah, and he was an engineering major, and he came out, and he was always interested in finance. And so he's been a financial advisor now for 16 years, and he earned the CDFA designation. So Mark, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm excited to hear what perspective you have from your discipline. And would you mind, explaining to people what a CDFA is?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, most people know to some degree what a financial advisor does, and what people going through a divorce don't realize is they need somebody there to essentially analyze data for them. There's a lot of financial components in divorce, and as you guys have realized quickly, lawyers are not financial people, and it is easy for them to miss something. And they don't always look at what short-term, intermediate term, or long-term goals are for the client post-divorce, because that's not what they're there for, right? That's not their focus.
Right.
So what a CDFA does, again, is help help to not make mistakes during the divorce, but also post-divorce, what are their chances and outlook and likelihood of success for those longer-term goals. And down to your point, nobody really knows what a CDFA is because there's not very many out there.
No.
And so as an example, I looked the other day in the state of Michigan, there was 55. And I know that only about a quarter of them do any sort of divorce work or have done any sort of divorce work ever, right? So we're talking about, a couple dozen people in a whole state. So there's a lot of need for
Oh,
people.
absolutely. And we know that, unfortunately, divorce, it's the first time in history where there's been a direct correlation to something going on in the world that has had a direct impact to divorce. And the American Bar Association did a study. We went on lockdown, let's just call it March of 2020. So they looked at the divorce rates from April of 2020 through April of 2021. And nationwide, the divorce rate increased by 34%. The certain areas like Manhattan, filings spiked 70%. And the number one group for divorces is actually what they call gray or silver hair divorce. I just learned, I attended the Florida Family Law Conference in Orlando this past week. I learned the number one day. Do you guys, little Cliff Clavin trivia for you. 300. So January is the number one month for divorce filings. Have any idea what the number one day for divorce filings
The day after Valentine's is my guess.
How'd you know that?
Yes. The ladies are upset.
Give him one last chance. He couldn't pull it. So all right, we're filing. So speaking of filings, what I notice a lot, Mark, is where they are negotiating. They being the husband and the wife, they're negotiating whether to keep the marital home. Do you care to touch on maybe some issues that you see and that should be addressed?
Yeah, so there's definitely a major issue that I see that, again, is not pointed out by other people, and it's not realized by necessarily either party getting the divorce. And a lot of times what I see, and I'm assuming what you guys see, step in obviously if you see something different, but it's usually the woman that wants to keep the marital home when there's kids involved.
Yeah.
And a big reason that they typically want to do that is from their perspective in this emotional time. They want stability for their kids. Moms, they're mama bears, right? They're looking after the kids and trying to protect them the best that they can. The problem is a lot of times they can't afford that house, and again, they don't understand all the time what is the holding cost, the budgeting, what income is going to look like, because the attorneys have not, and they're not typically capable of doing those projections for what life is going to look like after, right? They have very basic information, and they try the best that they can to educate clients. But frequently what we see is I've had a number of clients come to me after a divorce, and the non-financial spouse is usually completely unaware of what's going on. They don't know what investments they got. They don't know what pensions they got from their spouse. They don't know how to find them. And it's usually a disaster, unfortunately. And so they're typically overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of keeping the house can be great in the beginning until they've held it for a while and they're having to pay all these bills, and there's work that needs to be done to the house, and those are additional costs. And it creates a lot of pressure. And then ultimately what happens is they're not being the best parent that they can be. And to me, the way that I look at it is I want to make sure that we're in there ahead of time, educating parents so that they're able to be the best parents that they can to their kids.
So would you say your value is more pre-mediation on the front end or post-mediation, or is it fair to say one way or the other?
I think definitely coming in pre is preferred. And again, to provide the education to the clients so that they understand. I like to use this analogy a lot. The non-financial spouse, and there's usually only one in most cases, they are basically in the dark to finances, and that includes budgeting and investments and everything financially related. And they are going into mediation completely in the dark, and they feel overwhelmed, scared, nervous, and coming in as a CDFA and having somebody to help them while they're going through this who has financial knowledge about divorce will help them go from complete darkness to hopefully being in a room that is well lit, and they have some clarity around what the future is going to look like for them.
The challenge that we have, and you guys can both attest to this, and this is why we're doing these Facebook Lives, is how do we educate people, like Mark said, to reach out to you pre-mediation, or to reach out to us, pre-masters hearing, for the education that they need so that we can collaborate with the attorneys. It's no different than the phone calls we get from people that say, hey, we just bought a house. What do we qualify for? That's the other way around, but it almost seems like, just like when people want to buy a house, they go see the real estate agent first. When they're going through a divorce, rightfully so, they contact an attorney, but they completely forget about the other assets like the home and the retirement accounts and the IRAs and the 401ks. So that, the question is, how do we flip that script and get them to know how vital, Mark, what it is that you do is important.
Yeah.
And what it is, like, what Don and I do. How do we fix that?
So it's a great question. I think there's two things to talk about there. One is mental health professionals. I'll come back to that one. And the other is, what are the three types of divorce that people go through, and what are their options, and at least that I'm aware of, and there might be more. But one is a litigated divorce, right, where the two parties can't stand to see each other, right? Those attorneys, well, not always by any means, but there are plenty of them out there who they're interested in letting the spouses fight as much as possible, because it runs up the bill, and they instigate sometimes, and none of us want to work with those kind of attorneys, and that's not a good fit, I don't think. But there are two other sets of ways to get divorced. One is collaborative, where there are typically two attorneys, a mental health professional or a divorce coach, and a financial neutral person. So you got two neutral people not working for one side. You got a attorney on each side for husband and wife, and so you have a situation where everybody's working towards a common goal, which is to have the least impact on the family and give the best outcome to both sides.
I'm still waiting for the first one of those.
So depending on where you live, it's a lot more.
I haven't seen that yet.
And in other places it's not. So I think this all started in Minnesota, and they do a ton of that. They do a ton of that up there. And I'm in Michigan, and I think Western Michigan has a lot more of it than over here where I'm at in Southeast Michigan, right? So.
And today, Mark, we'll talk about this, but there's in the collaborative side, I'm actually going through my collaborative training next week. It's a 16-hour training, and I'll be finished February 10th. But I was on my collaborative team call today. There's 46 professionals from New York, Connecticut, all the way to California, everywhere in between, and mental health professionals, the psychologists, and obviously the family attorneys, the financial neutrals, including CPAs. And in fact, Ed Sachs, the president of, and one of the three co-founders of, or tri-founders, I guess, of my collaborative, said what happens is, on that, like you said, the adversarial or the litigating model, if they tried it and then it didn't work, they were $200,000 in, so they came to the collaborative. And he said, the neutral said, okay, where do you see this being a year from now and 5 years from now? And the first question, and the one spouse, they both looked at each other, they said, no one ever asked us that. So it's lay down the arms, and let's try to, they call it the alternative dispute resolution, or the ADR. Let's try to get out of here in the most positive ways possible. So you touched on the two big ones. What's the third, by the way?
The third is mediation, right? Where you go straight to a mediator. You don't have your own attorney on either side, and there's there's this idea that I'm stealing from a CDFA down in Arizona who's taught me a thing or two. And she has, I don't know if she's officially trademarked the term, but she calls it mediation plus, where you have a mediator and a financial, and both of them are working together to solve this issue. I've also heard it called, collaborative light, but there's, you call it whatever you like. It's two people trying to solve a problem. And I've had a number of people email me over the last couple of months saying, "Hey, I don't need attorneys. My wife and I just need to split things, but we want to not make any mistakes. Can you help us?"
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Mark. If anybody's watching, let's say there's somebody's watching and they're going, well, geez, I understand what Mark does, but do we really need him? Like, what's a qualifier for you? When does somebody need to come see you? If we've got 2 401ks or we've got no 401ks and the husband has a pension, do they need you? Like, is there a benchmark where somebody needs to come see you?
No, I wouldn't say there's like an asset amount or anything, or a complexity amount. I'll give you a quick example. And Don and I were just talking about this. Happens all the time. Let's say somebody's got a house worth 500. And then you got a 401k, combined 401k is a 500. A lot of times one spouse will just say, "Yeah, give me the house."
Right.
They don't realize that that's a really bad idea in almost every case, right? Because 500 and 500 don't equal the same thing, right? One, the house is, in my opinion, not a appreciating asset except for the last 18 months here or so. And the average home value goes up about 2% per year versus the 401k, which could have a 6 or 7 or 8% average return. And also at the same time, there's tax ramifications potentially to pulling money out of a 401k. So there's a lot that goes on. I've seen a lot of mistakes made. We're happy to phone calls and tell people if they need to talk to us or not, if we think they can just handle it on their own.
Do they have those aha moments when they come to see you and they feel like they've got it figured out, and then you're able to kind of show them a different avenue and they go, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't do that"?
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, all it takes is one tiny mistake to cost yourself a lot of money and a lot of headache and a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm. Would this be too much to unwind? Speaking of, say, a pension plan with the Quadro, or is that another Facebook Live?
I think it might be a good one for another one.
Okay, yeah, it's that's a meaty topic.
I wish I didn't know what a Quadro was, but I do.
Yeah, it's not what you think. It's not those movies you buy on the black market there.
No, I know what it is. I had to fill one out.
I know we were talking about keeping this conversation to 15 or 20 minutes, and something else about Mark that he doesn't know, what I really respect him. One of my I guess my themes this year is focus, and what I've learned from Mark and the last year that I've gotten to know him is that he's extremely focused. He's obviously very successful in his business. However, get this, when he goes home, say 6 o'clock, the phone's off and he spends his time with his family, his wife, and his very intelligent, very precocious 3-year-old daughter. Right. And so it's inspiring. It really is. So we're keeping him from his, so I really appreciate you, taking time away from your normal routine to focus on your family and give them the attention that they deserve.
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah.
Mark, one last question for you before we let you go. So if you're like Don and I, you're limited by your licenses and what state you're covered in, do you have the ability to perform outside of the state of Michigan?
I do. I do. As you can imagine, much like your state, people don't like to hang around in the winter once they don't have to anymore. So California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, we got a lot of clients in those states, along with some other ones sprinkled around, Colorado, New York.
So a couple
more I can't remember, but
you can operate in any state.
Yeah.
that's good to know. We're, for lack of a better way to explain it, Don and I are trying to create a network where, not only can we help people, but we can also refer them to people when we're not the right person for them, either because we're limited by licensing or because it's out of our, our scope of capabilities. So it's good to know that we have somebody that's all encompassing, and again, I want to meet as many people as I can so that we can kind of grow this practice and start helping all these people that, quite frankly, could be shooting themselves in the foot by signing documents that don't allow them to qualify for a loan, or like you said, or giving up something just because it looks good on paper.
A lot of people need a lot of help, so hopefully we can get the word out.
Yeah. Well, we definitely will, and we'll make sure that when this goes up, that I'm assuming you're on social media. We'll make sure you get the right accolades, and Don, Don's all over social media. He's a savant, so he'll probably be playing with this thing as soon as we're done.
Yeah, I'll be clean,
because I don't partake too much.
Well, it was good having you guys both on, and Mark, I appreciate your time. Don, always good to see you. And for everybody that's watching, we'll have another one next month and hopefully give you guys some more good information to think about. All right, guys, have a great night.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Mark. Safe travels tomorrow, buddy.